movie was about.
Yeah. Yeah. Lights, camera, action is going down. For my ATL movies, when we run this town with your host, T-Will, yeah, keeping it real. From the A to the screen, you can feel the thrill. Rolling with the classics, we're setting the pace. Highlighting the magic of our soulful space. Got the vibe, got the crew, making it tight. When the screen lights up, everything feels right. Grab your popcorn, let's make it loud. T-Will, T-Will. It's movie time, ATL style. Stand proud. From the silver screen to the hearts we steal. T-Will, T-Will. Every frame we capture is a real deal. Yeah. Talking premieres where the stars align. ATL views, yeah, they really shine. Behind the lens, capture.
Welcome, Marvel fans everywhere. How is everyone doing tonight? I hope you guys are doing great. It's your host, T-Will, and my guy, Jordan Burton. And we are talking about Luke Cage Season 1 tonight as we are doing our Doomsday Hourglass MCU rewatch. Jordan, how you doing tonight, sir? All well?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
All right. I notice you have a filler jersey on. Does that have anything to do with our presentation of Luke Cage tonight, or did you just want to wear it?
There's so many options I could have gone with jerseys. There's one in particular that I don't have, but Thomas Jones, the former NFL running back, has over 10,000 rushing yards. He actually is an actor in Luke Cage. Yes, I don't have a Thomas Jones jersey. I had actually an opportunity to buy one maybe like a month or two ago. I saw it at an antique store, but it was like a 2XL. I wasn't gonna. It's gonna be a little too big on me. And I was like, oh, that would have been a great option for this. But I knew with Harlem and some stuff that happens in season 2, I'm gonna save a jersey specifically for season 2. And this jersey is Will Chamberlain, a former Harlem Globetrotter. So, and obviously Luke Cage set in Harlem. Harlem's a really important aspect of the show. I figured I'd wear a former Harlem Globetrotter with Will Chamberlain.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. So we are talking about the MCU Marvel show Luke Cage, starring Mike Coulter and a cast of others. And what a show it is, Jordan. Tremendous show. Really enjoyed it. Super excited to get into it. When I first watched this show, I did love it. I'm not going to lie. I did love it. But the one thing that jumped out to me when I rewatched it was, there were so many things I loved about it. Like the fact that Harlem is an integral part of the story. It's almost like New York is to Spider-Man as Harlem is to Luke Cage. Just the culture, the music, the background, the history, the fact that a club plays a central part in the show. I don't know if you're familiar with the Cotton Club. You probably are. You're a big history buff in Harlem. But the Cotton Club was where a lot of Dorothy Dandridge, a lot of famous Black entertainers went in the 20s and 30s and 40s. And the Cotton Club was a very famous club in Harlem. And Harlem in the 20s and 30s was the only way I could think of it is you think of it as a Black LA, a Black New York, from an entertainment experience, from literature, from poetry, from intellects. Just Harlem was a great, great, great city. And a large part of Luke Cage and the thought process and the mission behind it is the resurrection of Harlem, which is where Mariah Dillard, one of the main villain, comes in. But anyway, I'm getting way too deep into the weeds. Jordan, give me your thoughts on Luke Cage. Just a brief overview on your thoughts and all of that.
So the first time I saw this was only like 2 years ago. It was the first time I saw Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, or Luke Cage. Because Daredevil and Punisher I had seen years before, but I had never seen any of the Netflix series like when they had first come out. Outside of the Punisher season 2. Um, I'm a big fan of Luke Cage from the comics. I loved using Luke Cage in the video game Marvel Ultimate Alliance. I had that on PSP, and I had played it on my friend's PlayStation 2. That game was so fun. You could play as different Marvel characters, and Luke Cage was one of them. I always loved using Luke Cage. I had a Luke Cage action figure, and I think Mike Coulter does a great job of being Luke Cage, to a point that like I feel like I'll get to that. But like you said, Harlem plays such an important role in this, in a way that like with Daredevil, Hell's Kitchen, I don't feel that in Hell's Kitchen and Daredevil. Like I feel like it's more of a one-sided relationship with Daredevil and Hell's Kitchen. Like Daredevil loves Hell's Kitchen, but it doesn't get reciprocated. And with Luke Cage, there's that reciprocation. The Spider-Man, like with Spider-Man in New York. It's a two-way street. So that's the two best aspects of this show are Luke Cage and Harlem. And I would say Mahershala Ali as Cottonmouth. I really, really enjoyed him as Cottonmouth. And they just had to kill him off. And that's for me when the show just kind of went downhill for me. I think that was a bold move, and I personally don't think it worked. There's a lot of characters I just don't care for in this. It's just hard for me. Like the main police woman, who's you're showing a picture of right now. I keep forgetting her name. I just don't really care for her. I don't care for Mariah Dillard either. I understand the missions, but what I liked about Cottonmouth is how much history and knowledge he has in what he's doing. And taking him away, Mariah Dillard being the main villain of season 1 and basically season 2 felt like we were just playing out Daredevil with different characters in terms of just defend two people who want to save Harlem, but for different. And that's where it just lost me. The show lost me. I like the show, and I especially like Luke Cage. I mean, I like Luke Cage and Jessica Jones season 1. I like, he was one of my favorite characters. I love him in his show. It's just there's certain aspects, not that Luke Cage himself can't control, that I'm just like, it's like the surrounding cast and surrounding story just felt a little flat for me.
Oh, okay. I get that, man. I respect it. I think you and I, from a ratings perspective, we are going to be miles apart on this one because I love this show. Mike Coulter, of course, plays Luke Cage. Simone Missick plays Misty Knight. Alfre Woodard played Black Mariah. Theo Rossi played Shades. Mahershala Ali played Cottonmouth. We see Rosario Dawson again as Night Nurse.
Love her.
Okay. Eric LaRae Harvey plays Willis Stryker or Diamondback. And Frankie Faison plays Pops. And again, I love this show. And I love it, I guess, because I'm a big fan of Harlem. A lot of people don't know that about me. I'm a big fan of old Harlem. I'm just a fan of Harlem in general. So I understand the history. And this was, to your point, Jordan, there is a relationship with Harlem and all of the characters. And it's one that we don't necessarily see in Daredevil. As a matter of fact, it's funny. When Pop is killed, and of course we got Turk Barrett. Turk Barrett is, in a lot of these shows already, bad guy, gangster. And of course, Turk is a jerk. He's just
Turk
a
is
jerk.
a jerk.
Turk is a jerk, right? So essentially in this, they are basically, let's give you the background on it. After gaining super strength and bulletproof skin from a prison experiment, Luke Cage hides out in Harlem trying to live a quiet, anonymous life, right? But when Cornell Cottonmouth Stokes tightens his grip on the neighborhood, violence begins to spill into the community that Luke calls home. The death of Pop, okay? And Pop is essentially Obi-Wan Kenobi in this story to Luke Cage.
Mm-hmm.
Pop has been in Harlem for a while. Pop has rehabilitated his own life. He went to jail. He was a hustler. He now owns a barbershop. And Pop takes on the role of mentoring young men. And Jordan, I don't know if you know this, but the barbershop in the African-American community, Jordan, let me tell you something, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's almost church, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's almost church, okay? When you go to the barbershop, Jordan, and you sit down to get the haircut, it's not just about the haircut, bro. Mm-hmm. It's about what's going on with your favorite sports team. How's your kid doing? State of politics. It is, other than church, one of the most social beacons in the African-American community. And Pop uses this as a way to kind of bring in young men and shape and mold them, right? One of the famous lines in the first 3 episodes is everybody got a gun, nobody got a father, right? So again, Pop is a big figure in Harlem, and his place is considered Switzerland. In other words, if you have a beef with somebody, you don't do it near the barbershop. You don't exact your measure of revenge near or at the barbershop. Bear that in mind, right? As we keep going. And so essentially, the first episode, we see Shameik and Chico and Dante, and they're all in the barbershop. And I think Chico is cutting Shameik's hair. And they're just talking about life, right? They're talking about the Knicks and how they drafted somebody, and of course how they suck. And then they make the reference of, who was the coach of the Knicks at the time? Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson is no Pat Riley. And so Chico talks about, why does Pat Riley get a hood pass? And a hood pass, for those of you watching the show who are not aware of it, it is essentially a way that says this person from another culture, another race, can come to the cookout with black folks anytime. It's essentially a hood pass. And he talks about Pat Riley having a hood pass, and of course Al Pacino. And they mention movies I talk about all the time, Jordan: Godfather, right? Scarface, and they also say and Carlito's Way. So those are 3 of the movies, but they talk about the fact that Pat Riley has a hood pass, but Phil Jackson doesn't. And what Luke says is, when the Knicks played for Pat Riley, they played like men. You know what I mean? You come through the hole if you want to with John Starks and I forget the other guy, Anthony Mason. You might go home in a body bag, right? And they're making this comparison, and they're just relating. This is something that happens in the barbershop. They're just relating to each other, and it's great. And later on in the episode, Chico, Shameik, and Dante decide to rob a deal, an arms deal, basically, where Cottonmouth's team is selling arms to, is it Rodrigo?
Yeah.
This guy from this Latin gang or whatever. And Chico, Shamik, and Dante interrupted and robbed them. And during the robbery, Shamik decides to kill Dante because he doesn't want to split it 3 ways. He decides to split it 2 ways. And this is the catalyst for the conflict that is going to follow. And so, of course, I think Dante was working for Cottonmouth at the time, and he called out of work. And as Dante is dying, he called one of Cottonmouth's henchmen and says, "Yeah, we robbed your deal or whatever, and it was me, Shamik, and Chico, and the race is on." Now, the other thing about episode 1 that I like is the witty banter between Misty Knight and Luke Cage, which is really kind of funny. Okay, Luke is tending bar. He typically doesn't do that. That's Dante's job, but since Dante called out, he has to do it. And so he comes at Misty Knight in a different sort of way. He says, "Are you one of Cottonmouth's models?" And the way he said it, you can tell he meant something else, but he's watching his words, right? And she says, "No." And he says, "Well, you're beautiful." And she says, "Thank you." He says, "But you're a little older." And she says, "Well, you're not too young yourself, sucker." And this is a callback to old Luke Cage comics from the 70s, where they're kind of blaxploitation films where everything was loud and proud and get down, you jive turkey, stuff like that. It's a subtle callback to that. But he says, "But hold on, young boys want a girl. Me, I ponder a woman." And you can tell it kind of lands with her. So they have this banner back and forth. Anyway, he sees her later on, and she asks him if he wants to go for coffee. He says, "I don't like coffee." She says, "I don't like it either." And they go to Mike's, to Luke's apartment, and they do the grown folk. And when she wakes up the next morning, and does the walk of shame, she lies to him and tells him she does audits at work or something like that, when she really ends up being a cop. But anyway, we're getting into the weeds, just kind of laying that. The main conflict from episode 1, or the main takeaway from episode 1, is that Shamik, Chico, and Dante rob Cottonmouth, and there's going to be hell to pay. Anyway, as we go on, Cottonmouth, of course, finds out. They go to the barbershop. They have this interaction with Pops. And Pops and Cottonmouth kind of came up together. They ran together when they were younger. They're friends. Cottonmouth respects Pops. And I guess you could say Pops, while he doesn't have, he has a respect for Cottonmouth as well. Okay, I would say that. Anyway, as he's cutting his hair, they're going back and forth. And Cottonmouth talks about old biblical eye for an eye themes, and how the youth don't value hard work, and how they want to, get there quicker and steal things. And he's basically getting at the point. Look, I know Chico and your boys did it. I know they hang out here. He's saying it without saying it, right? And he gets up to leave, and Luke Cage, who also works for Pops and Cottonmouth and in Cottonmouth's club, says, "Hey, Mr. Stokes, I think you forgot something. That'll be $20. And Pops says, no, don't worry about it. And Cornell says, no, go ahead and pay the man. But it's interesting in that Cornell is making a point to Pops, saying, "I really don't have to pay you." You know what I mean? This is about power, is what I'm saying. Give me your thoughts on what's going on in this scene.
Well, this is one of my favorite scenes of the whole season, because you get put on edge really early. And I will say, the first episode, I gave it a positive review, but I honestly, it didn't do much of anything, like compared to what other episodes would do, especially episode 2. I feel like episode 2 could have been smoothed into episode 1. But episode 1, yeah, just in general was kind of boring for me. But episode 2, like when you get into this scene, and it's interesting that not a single person has figured out Luke Cage yet to this point. Because if they did, then it wouldn't matter who is in the room, and they'd all be like looking at Luke Cage and respecting him. But I love Mahershala Ali, man. He does such a great job as Cottonmouth. Like I think he would have been on level with Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin, but they had to go kill him off. So I think that was the dumbest decision they could have made, because Mahershala, like, he creates this tenseness. Like, he's not the biggest dude in the world. He's not the strongest. He's not the fastest. He doesn't have any superpowers, but his power is who he controls, basically the same power that Kingpin has. The difference is Kingpin's a really big dude and very scary, but Mahershala Ali has that same power. And so going into this scene, you're like, all right, this man with power is going to, like you said, Switzerland, basically, in the barbershop, and he's just trying to put everybody on edge to be like, I know what happened, and I'm going to win no matter what. Like, I don't care about Switzerland. I don't care about barbershop. I don't care about you. I'm going to figure this out. And I love that Luke Cage just doesn't care. There is a part of Luke Cage that, like, it's a respect thing. Then there's another part of him that he just doesn't understand fully the operations, but that he doesn't want to. He doesn't fully understand the operations of, like, what goes on with, like, who Cottonmouth controls, and like any of, like, the crime scene or anything like that. He doesn't want to. He doesn't care, because he knows if he wanted to, he'd absolutely be the one in charge. And I mean, by the time this show ends in season 2, we see what Luke Cage is actually capable of. So the tenseness in this scene is really remarkable, and it's a great way to start this show. And like I said, I do think this should have been episode 1.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's fair. I think they're trying to build the environment and build and let you in on the nomenclature and the traditions of Harlem and just how this world functions apart from outside of Harlem, right?
And I think with episode 1, I don't think I learned anything. Like, I everything seemed really just straightforward and to the point, and which is why I was a little bored with it. Like, I knew there was nothing I didn't understand.
No, I get it. I get it.
I wanted something. It mainly because, I mean, with this show for Luke Cage, there's instances where Luke has nothing to do with the plot.
Mm-hmm.
And episode 1, if you cut out Luke Cage, I mean, the whole plot of episode 1 really has nothing to do with Luke Cage whatsoever. And it's really, Luke Cage almost feels like a side character in the first episode, and I don't like that, especially because, I mean, Mahershala Ali feels like the main character of episode 1.
Well, he is. Well, he is, yeah. Because think about it, he's the champ, right?
Yes.
Luke's the undercard.
Yes.
So I totally get it, and
is why it's frustrating they kill him off. Because he's such an important part of Harlem, and he's an important part of everything that is against Luke Cage, and he has everything going for him, and it only takes this woman right here there to kill him off. And that's it's so frustrating. And Shades too. I hate Shades. I'm gonna say it right now. Absolutely hate his character. Never liked him. Season 1 and 2, don't care for him. I don't like her either. Um what the heck is her name? Mariah Dillard. I don't like her. I hate Shades more. I just don't like them at all. And Cottonmouth, like, oh, that shot where it's where he's got the Biggie poster and it looks like the crown's on his head. What a shot! That's the best shot of the whole show. That's the best shot of the whole show. I love it. Because and there's so much backstory behind that, in that, like, you look at like what Biggie meant to Brooklyn, and that's all anyone. I mean, you go to Brooklyn and you're gonna hear Biggie at some point. Yeah. When I went to Brooklyn to help move out my uncle's stuff. I mean, yeah, I was there for like 5 seconds. That was the first time I was ever in Brooklyn. And I was like, all right, yeah, I love it. Because I love Biggie. Between Biggie and Tupac, I always loved Biggie. But there's so much backstory with like how important Biggie was to Brooklyn is basically what Cottonmouth wants to be or is to Harlem.
Right. He's using Biggie as a benchmark.
Yes.
But here's the thing, right? I love all of the villains because I see what they're trying to do as far as the community is concerned. Mariah is trying to legitimize Harlem. She's trying to keep certain outsiders from coming in and taking over Harlem the way that they've done Brooklyn. And I'm not going to say it because I don't want the YouTube to categorize this as anything other than what it is, but you get where I'm going, right? So her thing is she's trying to use resources and monies to build up the community. But the problem is Cottonmouth, it says to her, but you need money to do that. It's good that you went to school and got your education or whatever, but you need money and resources to do that. And if you look at a lot of these very, very wealthy people now that control a lot of their launching points are crime ridden. A lot of people don't know that. But they didn't start clean. They may be clean now. They didn't necessarily start clean. And that's the conflict between Mariah and Cottonmouth. She wants to keep Cottonmouth, in the back. She detests crime, right? And if you look at the way they were raised, this is what's so interesting about me. If you look at the way that they were raised, she was raised to go off and learn this skill and utilize your education. And he's very talented as far as the music world is concerned. But Mama Mabel would not allow him to develop that. She wouldn't, because she viewed him as one thing. And so their relationship has their own dynamics where he resents her and she resents him. She resents him because she thinks to herself, you could have been more. He resents her because he's saying, well, I could have been more, but Mama Mabel sent you away to school. I had to stay with her. So there's their own dynamic going. And it really is a microscope on it's a microscope on legitimacy and how you go from nothing to something with legitimate resources and legitimate funds. That's what I like about their dynamic. As far as Shades is concerned, Shades is her ghetto gangster Obi-Wan. Even though she was raised in it, she hated it. She hated that life. Now we will find out that she's very comfortable in it because she grew up in it. And as the saying goes, the more you look into the abyss, the more the abyss looks into you. So she's got the raw tools to do it. She just doesn't like it. right? And so Shades acts as her hood Obi-Wan Kenobi. You got to do this. And when you go to this meeting with these folks, you can't be weak. And you got to, and he's guiding her and leading her in season 1. As far as Diamondback is concerned, that's Cain and Abel. That's that's basically Joseph and his coat of many colors. Your dad didn't love my mom. He was ashamed of me. He put me to the background. He elevated you. And when we took that joyride, he stuck up for you. And he threw me to the wolves. And I'm pissed about it. And I get it. Now, if you want to say you don't like the actor, so be it. And and again, I get it. People look at this differently. But I really like this series because I understand what they're trying to do. And I've been talking way too long, Jordan. Go ahead, my friend.
Diamondback's another thing. This season felt like 2 seasons in one.
It did.
In that it feels like as soon as Cottonmouth dies, a new season has started.
Yes.
And that season then ends and goes through the whole Diamondback saga.
Right.
And that's another thing I just couldn't wrap my head around the inconsistency there, because you could have a full season of Cottonmouth even if you wanted to kill him off, which I still think would have been stupid. I think that is the worst decision that any of the Netflix series have done, including Iron Fist. I remember when he died, I had to pause it and step away and be like, that's the dumbest thing I've seen a show do in a very long time, especially an actor like Mahershala Ali. Right. I don't think I've watched a bad role from him. And there's a thing called aura. You look at this picture of the two of them. This man's screaming aura. He's aura farming, as my generation says, right? I act like I'm old right now, but his screen presence is incredible. And as soon as he dies, and I'm just like, this is really what we're doing? And then we get into the Diamondback saga. I don't like the actor, I guess, who plays Diamondback. I just think he overacted a lot. I love the Cain, like you said, Cain and Abel, love that. If this is how the whole first season would have been, great. If Cottonmouth was the first full season, great. But the fact that they split the two up felt like a lot of things were getting rushed. And I think what they should have done is I think they should have made I think you forget about Mariah Dillard for now. You could have saved her for season 2. You have because I feel like season 2 was missing stuff. And I felt like you could have started as Cottonmouth not being the main villain, but like an important part in how Diamondback is able to become Diamondback, and it's sort of a guy in the shadows. Not like what Kingpin is in basically all of Daredevil, but how Kingpin is in Daredevil season 2. Like in season 2 of Daredevil, Kingpin's not the main villain. He's taking a back seat, but he's still crucial to the whole plot, and it makes him scarier. And Cottonmouth could have been that, and you could have had the Cain and Abel situation all season long, setting up Luke Cage's origin story, which I actually have. His origin story is my highest rated Luke Cage episode because I absolutely love that episode and how he gets his powers. You could have it would have felt more personal, a brother story, Cain and Abel, and that could have been setting up. Okay, he was just as the Joker says, I'm just a dog chasing cars. That's basically what Diamondback could have been. Yeah, Diamondback could have been that. And then in season 2, you have Cottonmouth being the overarching villain and being like, okay, he has a lot of control. But splitting this season 1, there's just so much going on, and it's split into 2 sections that you almost have to analyze it from a season 1 part 1 and season 1 part 2, because otherwise it just feels like there's so much going on. I mean, by the end of the season, you look at episode 1 compared to episode, like, the moment Cottonmouth dies to the final episode, and you're like, what went on in between all of that? There's just it was definitely director's choice and the writer's room that did all of this, and that was probably the most frustrating thing of all of the whole show. And I don't think, and because all of this is happening behind the scenes, it feels like at times Luke Cage is a side character in his own show, and that's the one thing that getting back to what we both said about, like, Spider-Man in New York, like, it was a two-way road, and it feels like that, but it almost feels like Harlem might have greater like a more of a character in the story at times than Luke Cage. And I would say probably based off the whole first season, I think Harlem has a bigger character than Luke Cage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's a choice, and I just think, Jordan, I think that's a cultural thing. Harlem is big with a lot of folks.
Oh yeah.
Of the melanated tribe. So I think that was a cultural choice, and I'm not mad at it. But let's get back to the story. So and we'll jump around a bit just to have some fun. But ultimately, in episode 2, of course, there's a failed robbery. Tensions rise across Harlem. The streets begin to feel more dangerous, more predictable. Luke is still trying to stay out of it, but the world around him is collapsing into violence. The consequences of crime are no longer distant. They are immediate. Everything changes with the death of Pop. And this is where stuff changes. When I can't think of the henchman's name, but he kind of says to Cottonmouth, how do you feel about, Chico? And Cottonmouth says, well, hey, if you catch him slipping outside, it's fine. If not, I'll just pick him up tomorrow, because he agreed to the parlay with Luke to meet him there and discuss Chico and give him his money back. And this is a miscommunication. This is a really big communication, because this henchman wants to be the man. He wants to step up. He wants to impress Cottonmouth, but he doesn't know the depth of the relationship and the respect for the love and the respect and love that these two men have for each other. So he makes a critical error in that, when I guess with some folks, you have to just come out and say, don't kill him. Make sure that Pops doesn't get hurt. Don't shoot up Pop's shot, right? You would think that the tone and the way he said it would have gotten across to his henchmen, but it doesn't. And so he shows up, comes down those stairs, and with automatic gunfire, boom, 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 just starts letting off shots. And unfortunately, there's a kid in one of the chairs, and Luke goes to save the kid. And in doing so, leaves Pops vulnerable. Pops is hit in the neck, either near, through, at the jugular, and he bleeds out. And the last thing Pops says to Luke is always forward. Now, the thing about this is, because Luke escaped from jail, he's trying to keep a low profile. He doesn't want to be a hero. He doesn't want attention, right? He's trying to keep a low profile. But by killing Pop, after everything that he's basically done for Luke, Luke feels indebted to, okay, now I got to come after you guys. And that's actually what happens. The death of Pop is a big thing in Harlem because, like I say, Pop's place is known as Switzerland, and everybody from all the characters to Misty Knight, who grew up coming to his barbershop, to Cottonmouth, to obviously Luke and others are impacted by this. Pop's homegoing services are really something because everybody shows up. And what's interesting is I can't think of his name. I cannot think of the henchman's name, but he and Shades go back. And Shades kind of came up with Cottonmouth. So he knew, and he tried to tell him, I don't think you want to do that. But he wouldn't listen. So the henchman goes to Cottonmouth and he's telling him what happened. And he's proud. And he's like, yeah, man, I made an executive decision. I lit that place up. And, you know, Cottonmouth is upset, but he says, well, if you had to do what you had to do, I'll give Pop some money and he can rebuild. And that's when stuff gets bad because Shade says, I tried to tell him, he wouldn't listen. And he says, Pops is dead. And you see this look come over Cottonmouth's face like, what? And Turk Barrett, that jerk, Turk's a turd. He really is, man. Because he's the one that called Cottonmouth's henchman anyway and started all of this because he wanted to get paid. And he ends up not getting paid anyway, right? So anyway, Turk says, hey, I came to get paid. And Cottonmouth says, how did you get up here? And he says, they ain't built a lock that can hold Turk Barrett out, baby. And, you know, so... And some of the lines in this series were just great. And we are coming up on one of them. So Cottonmouth grabs his henchman, throws him off the roof where he falls to his death, and he says, you can go down to the first level and collect your money from him. Is that clear? And Turk Barrett's straight face says, hold on, I'm trying to keep it laughing. He says, you N-words from Harlem are uptight, man. Y'all are something else. I'm going back to Hell's Kitchen where it's safe.
I love that. I love that line.
That was hilarious. That was hilarious, man. He said, I'm going back to Hell's Kitchen where it's safe. And if you know anything about Hell's Kitchen, it is anything but safe, which is what makes it hilarious. Let me tell you something. That line was a classic. I laugh every time I see it because he's like, damn, man. Y'all are nobody expected him to do that, which again makes Cottonmouth's character so great and so dynamic because he really does love Pop. And he made that decision to kill him. As soon as he told him he was dead, he's just working out how to do it. But he's making the decision to kill him right there. But that was just, oh man, that was so funny. Anyway, Luke transitions from passive to active. This is the episode where he chooses to act. Pop's death becomes the moral catalyst for the entire season. Cottonmouth, his empire begins to crack because of, you know, Luke is pissed, right? And Luke just starts going to Cottonmouth's trap houses and robbing them and taking the money, and he's bulletproof. So what are you going to do? As a matter of fact, episode 2 starts as Luke is looking at a building named after Crispus Attucks, which, if many people don't know, was the first African-American man killed in the Civil War. The guy says, what are you doing, N-word, and holds a gun to his head. And he's like, I've been through too much to just let you call me that name. And so the episode kind of plays out, and then it gets back to this, and he's like, do you see an N-word standing in front of you? And he's like, go ahead, pull the trigger. And he points the gun and says, he's like, oh, you scared? Let me do it for you. And he fires the gun at his gut, and it bounces off. And the look at this guy's face, he's like, oh my God. And he turns around running. But anyway, this was a great episode. I hate that Pop had to die. I really do. Mm-hmm. I really liked his influence. I liked what he was about. But unfortunately, If Pop doesn't die, we don't get birth to the conflict between Cottonmouth and Luke Cage. So been talking way too much, man. Give me your thoughts on episode 2. Give me your thoughts.
No, I mean, yeah, Pops. It needs to die. Like that is how you set up the conflict between Luke and Cottonmouth, and it is so crucial to the plot. So it like I said, with the 2 parts of this season, it feels like by the end of this first season that Pops's death almost feels like years ago at this point.
Yeah.
Like it almost feels like his presence, even though his presence in the first like 5-6 episodes is so heavy, it feels like it's pretty much gone by the last episode. And again, it's just it feels like it's like we had 2 different groups of people writing and directing this whole entire show. But I like Pops. I liked his character a lot, and it makes total sense. His character, like running a barbershop, like you said, having all of these people from all different parts of everywhere in New York coming there and just having a good time. And so for someone who's like peace forward to die means chaos will arise, and that's exactly what happens. Right. So right. in a story sense, so it's kind of hard to do a spin-off series when you're introduced to the main character already. Like we were introduced to Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, so it's like how do you create a show off of Luke Cage? And like, where do you start? Do you do a prequel to Jessica Jones, or do you do a sequel? And this being a sequel, there needs to be some sort of turning point in that and that creates the show, and that is Pops' death.
Yeah. No, it's unfortunate, but again, that episode 2 is probably one of my favorite episodes of this entire series because it gives it meaning, and boy, does it gaslight. That's a young folks word, but boy, it gaslights the plot. So, let's skip around a bit. Episode 4 is kind of when we look at Luke's background and his origin story, and the fact that his real name is Carl Lucas, and that he was framed by his brother, Stryker, aka Diamondback. And it shows how the story begins inside Seagate Prison. And we meet Reva, who would eventually become his wife. But man, you talk about duplicitous. You talk about deceitful. I don't know that there's anybody more deceitful than Reva. Excuse me. And it kind of adds to the conflict because she's no longer with us, right? Because she's deceased. He can't get closure with her and say, I can't believe you lied to me. I can't believe you did this. So the way this is set up is he meets Reva at a therapy session. She's the psychologist, and she's trying to get these men to talk about their experiences, to talk about their feelings and all this other stuff. But really, she's trying to separate the strong from the weak, and she's looking for candidates so that they can do their tests on. And really, I guess they're trying to make some sort of super soldier or whatever for nefarious purposes. But she comes across as this kind, humble, just very diligent servant / doctor who's really trying to help these men, when really it's the polar opposite, right? And the prison warden, who is another antagonist, and he's trying to get these men to fight, not just because he's making a little money, but they're trying to identify the strongest men to be candidates for this program. And so, Luke is going to her, and initially Luke doesn't trust her, but she sees that Luke is very intelligent. And so, of course, as this episode goes on, he ends up falling in love with her. The prison guard can see that, and he kind of leverages her to get Luke to participate in the program. And anyway, as the episode goes on, Luke decides, I'm not going to do this anymore. This isn't right. And he decides he's going to quit. And this is when Shades and Comanche beat him up really badly and put him in the, what do they call it? Not the hospital, but the whatever medical ward in the prison that they call it. Anyway, he's so beaten badly that Reva says to the doctor, go ahead and do it. Put him in the program. Let's do it. And he's like, well, he's probably going to die. And she's like, please just go ahead and do it. And so she does. And this is the origin of Luke Cage's powers. But what we learn later on is that she was aware of everything that was going on, Jordan. As a matter of fact, she was encouraging it, right? Which makes her kind of despicable. You get what I'm saying? And again, a large part of Luke Cage are the internal conflicts because he has unbreakable skin, right? So this is one of those, I don't want to say Luke versus Reva, but it's his personal conflict where he's like, you're not who I thought you were at all, right? It's like if your spouse died and you found out they were a serial killer and had this entire life, you'd be like, who are you? And this is what is going on in this episode. One thing I do like about it, they did do little callbacks to the original comics where when he breaks out of jail in this episode, he puts on that ridiculous yellow shirt. And because of the metal headpiece that they had around him and the bracelet, he looks like Luke Cage from the comics. He even says in the mirror, oh, this is ridiculous. Like, it was bad, but
no.
I like the fact that it was kind of a callback to the previous comics. So anyway, give me your thoughts on this episode, Jordan.
Oh, this is my favorite episode of all of the Luke Cage series. I love all the callbacks. I felt more personal and more connected with Luke Cage in this episode. If there's any negative that I give this a 9 out of 10. This is the only 9 out of 10 that I have of any of the Luke Cage episode, any Luke Cage episode except for the final episode of season 2. That also is a 9 out of 10. But this is definitely my favorite. I love the origin story. You know me. I love my origin stories. I love that he gets to wear that ridiculous costume that's comic accurate. I love that. It's incredible. Because, all right, Jessica Jones, honestly, I could never see Caitlin Ritter ever trying to wear her comic accurate costume. And it just, her attitude with the character just does not mesh well with her costume. But Luke is so kind and respectful, even though he's this overarching, like, humongous dude who's bulletproof, that it makes it more it adds to his, like, sense of humor, and it adds to his, like, respect almost, that he could wear, like, neon green and you'd still feel the same about him. Yeah. So that's why he can wear the comic accurate suit. So I love this episode. The only negative I do have is it just retroactively makes all of the Luke Cage part of Jessica Jones killing her. It just feels like that was pointless now. And that, like, we felt so bad for Luke and Jessica during season 1 that we're like, I feel bad for Luke, but Jessica was under, like, Kilgrave's power, so it's like it's so hard to really, like, connect with. It's so hard. We don't really. You feel bad for everybody, but after watching this episode, it's like we don't really care. Like, she died. Oh well. It's like we go back. If we were to go back and watch Jessica Jones season 1, you'd be like, we didn't really like her anyways. So it's like it feels like we're taking a step back from like Jessica Jones season 1 and like not really caring for this character that we thought we were caring about, but we're actually not. And I don't like when certain shows do that, because it makes previous seasons or previous episodes or movies not really matter as much.
That's fair. That's fair. I felt bad for Luke because I'm like, wow, like, and it had to make him feel bad because you can't talk to the person. It's like they're gone, and you find out. Now, the other thing about it is, I think she really did fall in love with him.
Yeah.
Because she has to go on the run.
Yes.
She takes him to her dad. So she clearly fell in love with him and was trying to be a different person. And you know, you have to speak to that. But with Luke just finding it out, it has to be somewhat of a conflict. Sorry about that. It has to be somewhat of a conflict to Luke, and it has to be. I don't know how you deal with that. You know what I mean? Because you have no place to put it, right? The only thing you can do is forgive the person because you can't have the conversation with her.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can't argue. So I think that was I don't know. I thought that was a very good episode. I did enjoy it. Excuse me. Let's talk about some conflict. So a large part of this is the internal conflict, and that is Luke Cage versus Carl Lucas, his future versus his past. Look, I want to be a hero. I got these powers for a reason, but if I go out here, these folks are going to identify me, and I can't help anybody out in jail. And Night Nurse, or Rosario Dawson's character, is really big in getting him to come out of his shell. And you know what? Go ahead and own it. You know what I mean? As a matter of fact, when he's like, but I have a prison record, she's like, so do half the people in Harlem have brothers, cousins, fathers, dads, mothers in prison. You're one of them. Why not do it? And so again, there's a lot of conflict going on. There's Harlem versus crime. A large part of this is a battle for the soul of Harlem and where we're going, you know, and so I really like the way that they did that. I think it was one thing that they did well. It's the whole conflict angle. Let's get to the final episode. Well, you know what? Before we do that, very quickly, we did have some Easter eggs in here that they were dropping that I thought was very interesting, and you know, one of them was the fact that obviously you had Night Nurse in there, who was in every. I think she was in every series because she's also in Iron Fist.
Yep.
So you know, there's the hammer technology, right? That they refer to with Justin Hammer, who is one of Iron Man's enemies. There's the incident that they refer to, right? There's Rand Enterprises that they mentioned, which is obviously Iron Fist. And then there's the Stark level tech that's on the streets. So I really like that. And then there was the Method Man cameo, which I love. I love that. There were two cameos in here that I really love. One of them is Method Man. When Method Man is doing his song Bullet. Well, I just like Method Man in general, but the Bulletproof Love, that was dope, man. The music in this show was dope.
It was.
Oh my God, but that was great. And then I don't know if you caught this, but in one of the episodes, there was Dapper Dan. Now, Dapper Dan is an actual person who lives in New York, and he is a tailor, and he's known throughout the hip hop world as the guy you go to, you know, when you want to get clean, you know, when you want to get your swag up, when you want to aura farm, if you will, for the young folks. it's Dapper Dan. So I really enjoyed those cameos. I thought that was so true to the culture, and I really did enjoy it. But let's talk about this final conflict, man. Diamondback, of course, plays his final cards. And what I like about Diamondback is he's so audacious, right? He shows up, can you dig it? And he talks in his voice like, he is overacting a little bit, but I liked it because I know guys like this. I know guys like this.
I've never met a single person like this in my entire life.
300% extra. And he is just like that. As a matter of fact, when he's having a conversation with Shades and he's like, what are you doing? And he's like, hey, man, sometimes you got to throw out the script. I mean, look, I'm rhyming off the dome, but I hadn't missed a verse yet. I love, to me, he has some of the best lines. Some of the best lines when he's talking to Mariah Dillard and he's like, an easy way to sell it is to just show them, you know, America doesn't want bulletproof N-words around or something like that. But the verbiage and the lines of this character, I just love them. Now, I know he's a bit over the top, but I know guys like this. So it wasn't a foreign concept to me. Was he the best villain? No, I'm not going to say that. But number one, I totally understand, you know, all you got to do is look at the story of Joseph and his coat of many colors. This is that story. This is the story of a dad preferring one mom and one son over the other. And the fact that he grows up and the fact that Luke did kind of betray him. Luke didn't stand up for him. Luke didn't do the crime. Luke didn't do the crime that he was accused of, but that doesn't mean he's innocent, right? Mm-hmm. So I get that. But I really liked Diamondback's story. And I liked him and Luke Cage. Would I have killed Cottonmouth? No, I wouldn't have. I would not have killed Cottonmouth. At least not in season 1. If you got to kill him in season 2, or you could have set up a conflict between Cottonmouth and Diamondback in season 2. There are all sorts of places you could have gone. I wouldn't have killed Cottonmouth, but I understood why they did it because that was the only way Mariah would have taken control of Harlem. That's the only way you could have furthered that agenda, right? But anyway, let's talk about this final battle. They get after it. Diamondback has this special suit that is also Hammer Tech that basically imbues him with the powers of Luke Cage. He's got super strength, super power, or whatever. It's kind of like, I don't know, a ghetto Iron Man suit without the iron, right? Let's think of it that way. But anyway, he and Luke go at it. There's a battle. And Luke decides, you know what? And I love the way they do this. There's a backstory of him and Diamondback when they're young. And basically there's a fight where either Diamondback or Luke just lets this guy punch on him. It's the old rope-a-dope thing. Just let this guy punch on you until he's tired, and then you attack him. And Luke finally says, look, I'm not going to fight you anymore, man. And Diamondback unloads on him. And when he's all out of energy, Luke knocks him out. Right? And Diamondback is dealt with. Of course, the witness that they have for Mariah gets killed by Shades, and Mariah escapes to become the villain in season 2. Unfortunately, Mariah called the cops in Georgia, and they show up to get Luke Cage. And Rosario Dawson's character, Night Nurse, says to him, well, I know a guy who's a lawyer. We're going to work this out. And again, the witty banter between she and Luke Cage is great because he's like, I prefer a Brazilian roast or something like that. Because you're so corny. But you're absolutely right. That roast is good. And let me tell you something, man. That kiss at the end of that episode, woo, man. Just fire, man. It was this was probably, other than episode 2, my favorite episode. But let me get your thoughts on it, and then we gotta rank it. So go ahead, give me your thoughts on it.
I want to start off by saying I believe Diamondback has the single worst villain costume in frankly any Marvel movie ever. And like anything, even stuff we have not reviewed. Like I've seen Red Skull from 1990 Captain America I gave a 0.5 out of 10. It looked better. That looked better than whatever the heck he was wearing in this. It because the show felt so grounded.
Right.
Especially when you do the Harlem connection with Luke Cage.
Right.
You have the Cottonmouth and like all the street crime and stuff like that. And then you get this ridiculous looking thing with Diamondback. And I was just like, all right, this feels weird. Okay. I guess we're doing this. I don't know. This felt like a stereotypical ending and the fight wasn't like the craziest thing in the world. I think it's also hard because Luke Cage is so powerful that it's hard to figure out, I guess, a finale. And in my opinion, it shouldn't have been a physical finale. It should have been like a life or death situation with someone that he loves. Maybe Night Nurse. Yeah. Maybe someone else. But that's how I would have probably done it. Not a toe for toe, blow for blow type of ending. But I think it's great that we end this season and everybody knows who Luke Cage is, because I mean he basically takes over the mantle of Pops. Like while Switzerland isn't necessarily a barbershop, Switzerland is Luke Cage. In that, if you are behind Luke Cage and Luke Cage is in front of you, you will always be safe. That's what I get from Luke Cage by the end of this.
No, that's 100% fair and accurate. I love this series. I really enjoyed it. I think this may be one of the biggest disparities that we have when it comes to Reddit, because I know I got a feeling I know what you're gonna give this,
yeah,
and I know what I'm gonna give it, and there's gonna be a very distinct difference. But with that being said, bro, let's go for what we know. So I'm gonna tell you. As a matter of fact, let me pull up the thing you sent so I can tell you exactly where I put this. And I kind of labored back and forward with this. Mm-hmm. Give me 1 sec. I'm trying to pull it up. I know you sent it to me.
I want to say I do like Luke Cage is awesome. I want to make that very from a character's perspective.
Right.
Think he's awesome. The guy who plays him, fantastic. I don't honestly want anybody else as Luke Cage. And even going forward, if we see anybody else as Luke Cage, I'm probably going to be just disappointed. It just felt like, and every time I watch this, it's more of like the surrounding part of the show that really brings it down for me. But every time Luke Cage is on screen, every time Mahershala Ali is on screen as well, that's the best parts of the show for me.
All right. So I'm going to give this a 8.5 out of 10.
Wow.
And I told you it was going to be some.
Wow. That's great. Wow.
I told you that. And it's going to be right under Daredevil season 2.
Wow.
Right under Daredevil season 2. But yeah, I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. And I'm thinking you're going to give this, if I had to guess, it's either a 6 or a 6.5. I'm going to go 6.5. I'm going to go 6.5. Anyway, what'd you give it?
Like I said, I really like the show. Highest score of the first season was a 9 out of 10. It was that intro. All right, the origin story. I had 3 other episodes that were 8 or higher. I had 3 episodes that had negative reviews on, I had 2 episodes that were negative reviews. 3. I was wrong. And all of them happened after Cottonmouth died, which, I mean, we can probably hint at. It just felt like a plot was taken out of the whole show with that. So I ended up giving it the average score for me ended up being a 6.5 out of 10. Yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay. That's what okay. All right.
It's not the biggest discrepancy, but that
Right.
we have. That would be definitely X-Men: The Last Stand. But it's up there. I had this. Where did I have it? I had it below Jessica Jones season 1, and above the Incredible Hulk. I think when it comes to Jessica Jones season 1 and this, I think if I firmly believe if Cottonmouth were the main villain of this whole season, or the vice versa, if Diamondback were the villain of this whole season, even though I hated Diamondback's acting, I think it would have been better than Jessica Jones season 1.
Can you dig it?
But Kilgrave had this part about him that I just wanted him to suffer. And and that
100%.
story, it is the equivalent to going halfway through Jessica Jones season 1 and Kilgrave being killed off, and then the actual villain is like Kilgrave's parents. Like that's how I felt like you could compare the two. I think there was more of a straightforward story that I was following along with, and I just wanted Jessica Jones to have redemption. But I think there's quite a bit of character plot points within Luke Cage that just didn't work. And for that, I have Jessica Jones just slightly higher. I also think, I think both shows, unlike when we get to tomorrow's season, I think both Jessica Jones and Luke Cage, what they both do well is the vibe I get from both shows. So in Jessica Jones, it's this noir feel, but in Luke Cage, it's this street crime feel to it.
70s blaxploitation.
Yes.
You know, with the whole Sweet Christmas.
Yes.
It really was
I'm so glad he said that line. I am when he said that, I jumped for joy. I'm like, yes, he said his catchphrase. I love it. All I need is every single superhero in Marvel to say their catchphrase at least once. At least once. They never have to say it again. It could be the dumbest thing in the world, but if they say it once, it's just so random. Like Sweet Christmas. I think about that sometimes. I say that sometimes.
Claire says it. Oh my God, no, I've never said that. But Claire says it in Iron Fist, I think. I think Claire is like sweet. I think she does.
Sweet Christmas.
Sweet Christmas. Yeah.
But yeah, that both Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, I get this cool vibe between the two shows. But like I said, that kind of fades when we go into the next show that we're going to be reviewing.
You know what? I'm going to say this. I started watching that show. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie. I'm not. Oh, no. I was captivated, bro. I couldn't look away. I know it. I'm not saying it's
You're gonna like Eternals.
I think
you're gonna like Eternals.
I think that's what's said. Like, I was watching it. Now we'll get into that later. There's a part of it, some things I really didn't like, but dude, I was really captivated with it. I'm up here watching like, and I'm thinking to myself, I shouldn't like this. And then I'm thinking, I know what Jordan's gonna say, but I'm like, I can't look away. I cannot look away. I know. The reason Jordan's laughing is because I do this a lot. Like, I will watch something and hate it, and then
it was actually a really good film. It was actually a really good show. I was sitting there watching it and thinking, "Oh, this is gonna be bad," but it was really a good show.
I knew you were gonna say that. That's why I didn't want to say anything. But I'm sitting there. I wanted to reach out to you yesterday, but I was busy. But I'm watching the show, and I'm like, "Oh, that was good. Oh, I forgot about that. Oh, wow." And Nothing. Anyway, I'll save it for tomorrow. Hey, to everybody who joined us, thank you guys. We really appreciate that. I'm laughing because I know we get off this show, George's going to be like, really? What the hell, man? Really? Really?
Look, I have different opinions about Iron Fist compared to the majority of the public, but I just think it's funny that you go through this every single time where it's like, oh, I hate this. I'm going to need some liquor. We're going to need some whiskey. And you keep been saying that this whole time about Eternals. We're going to get to Eternals, and you're going to be like, that may have been the greatest film I've ever seen. You're going to be like, I understand the message now. I understand the message that they were trying to present. It wasn't good. It still wasn't good. We're going to get to She-Hulk, and you're going to be like, this is probably as good as Iron Man.
You know we got to cut this last part, right? Anyway.
We're not cutting that. No.
I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Oh, God.
For those who don't know, we're reviewing Iron Fist Season 1 next. It's widely regarded as the worst of the Netflix Marvel shows. The worst. I have a more positive outlook on the show compared to others, but that's the next thing we're reviewing.
Okay, guys, I'm so sorry for that outburst. I knew Jordan was going to say that, which, again, I can't explain the whole thing, but he's right. I do that. I will watch a show and be like, it sucked. I hated it, and then I review it. You know what? It wasn't that bad. And Iron Fist, which is, again, highly regarded as the worst Netflix show. I gotta admit, I was watching it yesterday, and I was entertained. I'm not saying it was the greatest show, but I was like, okay, you know what I mean? I'm watching it anyway. Whatever, man. We got a lot. Jordan, thank you as always for doing these shows with me, man. I just enjoy talking Marvel with you, and these are fun. This was fun. I'm probably going to cut that last bit out.
No, don't cut it. It was perfect. Don't cut it. I loved it.
I got a show in a few minutes, and you have messed it up because I'm going to be thinking about this conversation, laughing the entire time, and I'm not going to be able to bring it up. So thank you for that. Anyway, hey, to everybody who joined us, we thank you. We love talking Marvel content with you guys. If you get a chance, please like, share, and subscribe to For My ATL Movies on YouTube. And hey, come back tomorrow when we talk about Iron Fist. And I don't know what's going to happen, but either way, it's going to be a good time. Thanks for joining us. Good night, everybody. This movie was about...
Lights, camera, action is going down. For my ATL movies, when we run this town with your host, T-Will, yeah, keeping it real. From the A to the screen, you can feel the thrill. Rolling with the classes, we're setting the pace. Highlighting the magic of our soulful space. Got the vibe, got the crew, making it tight. When the screen lights up, everything feels right. Grab your popcorn, let's make it loud. T-Will, T-Will. It's movie time, ATL style. Stand proud. From the silver screen to the hearts we steal. T-Will, T-Will. Every frame we capture is a real deal. Yeah. Talking premieres where the stars align. ATL views, yeah, they really shine. Behind the